Welcome back to the Explainer. So, if you've been following our web development series, you already know the basics, right? You know how to add text, links, and images to a web page. But today, we're going to tackle something super powerful: HTML tables, and how to use them to structure data clearly. Just imagine trying to display a student's mark sheet, a complex product price list, or maybe a massive employee database without using any rows or columns. It would be this giant, unreadable wall of text, absolutely impossible to organize, and honestly a total nightmare for anyone visiting your website. Structure is literally everything when you're dealing with information.
Which brings us to Section 1, Why We Need Tables.
So what exactly are we talking about here? It all comes down to tabular data. Basically, that's just a structured set of data made up of rows and columns. Think about the stuff you see every single day: a school mark sheet showing subjects and grades, an Excel spreadsheet tracking your monthly budget, or even a cricket scorecard updating runs and wickets. HTML tables were designed specifically to take that familiar, everyday grid format and bring it straight to the web. Okay, let's get into the code. Section 2, your first HTML table. Building a table in HTML is honestly a lot like constructing a building. First, you need your scaffolding, right? And that scaffolding is the table tag. This is your core container. You open it, you close it, and absolutely everything else, your data, your rows, your headers, has to go inside these two tags. It's what holds the whole shebang together. Once you've got your building container, you need to add some floors and rooms. In HTML, we use the TR tag, which stands for table row. Think of every TR as adding a brand new floor to your building. Then, inside that row, we use the TD tag, meaning table data cell. You can think of the TD tags as the individual rooms on that floor. So in this little snippet here, we have one row, and inside it, two data cells. One room for HTML and one room for CSS. And here is what the browser spits out. Because we used one TR tag holding two TD tags, we get a single horizontal row with those two pieces of data sitting nicely side by side. Boom, you've just built your very first table row. But this raises an interesting question. What do you think will happen if we actually want headings for our columns? Like if we're building that employee database, how do we visually separate the title name from the actual name, John? If every cell is just a standard TD room, they're all going to look exactly the same. To fix this, HTML gives us the TH tag, which stands for table header. Check out the visual difference here. A standard TD cell displays normal left-aligned text. But when you swap that out for a TH tag instead, the browser automatically makes the text bold and centers it. It instantly signals to your user, hey, this is a category title, not just everyday data. Let's put all these puzzle pieces together into a complete real-world example. Here we've got a table with a row of headers: name, age, and city. Right below that, we have two rows of standard data cells for our people, John and Sarah. Also take a look at the opening table tag. I've added an attribute that says border equals 1. By default, HTML tables are actually invisible grids. So adding this border attribute forces the browser to draw the grid lines so we can clearly see our rows and columns. And look at how clean that output is. Those bold, centered headers at the top line up perfectly with the standard data cells underneath. The border attribute gives us that classic, easy-to-read Excel spreadsheet vibe. The data is organized, it's structured, and it just makes sense. Moving right along to Section 3, merging rows and columns. Now, sometimes a simple grid just doesn't cut it. Think about a complex product price list where you have one massive main category spanning across a bunch of subcategories. How many columns will our table actually create if we force one cell to stretch across the space of two? The trick here is the colspan attribute. Colspan literally means column span. You just pop it right inside your TH or TD tag and assign it a number. It lets a single cell merge with adjacent cells horizontally, stretching from left to right. It's an absolute game changer when you need a master title to hover perfectly over multiple subcolumns. See how that top header, student information, doesn't just awkwardly sit over the name column? Because we used a colspan of 2, it stretches beautifully across both the name and Alice columns. It seamlessly covers the space of 2 horizontal cells and keeps our whole layout looking incredibly sharp. And then on the flip side, we have row span. As you can probably guess, this attribute merges cells vertically. So instead of stretching left to right, row span pulls the cell downwards. It takes up the vertical space of multiple rows, which is super handy if you want to group a bunch of related items under one broad category on the left side of your table. Like in this example, we have the broad category front end on the left. Since it has a row span of 2, it stretches down vertically to pair up with 2 specific items on the right, HTML on the top row, and CSS on the bottom row. It's exactly how you'd format a school timetable or a sports tournament bracket. All right, let's talk best practices in Section 4. I want to quickly run through some common beginner mistakes so you can avoid them entirely. Number 1, forgetting to close your tags. If you leave a row or a data cell unclosed, the whole thing just visually breaks on the page. Number 2, accidentally using a standard TD instead of a TH for your headings. That completely ruins your visual hierarchy. Number 3, messing up your row and column nesting. Always remember the analogy. Build the container first, then the floors, then the rooms. And lastly, miscalculating your col spans and row spans. If your math is off, your data gets pushed completely outside the grid. Okay, and please pay close attention to this one because it is a massive pitfall. Never, ever use HTML tables for your website's actual page layout. Back in the Stone Age of the internet, like the 1990s, web developers used invisible tables to position sidebars and footers. Today? Absolutely not. It creates bloated code, it breaks on mobile phones, and worst of all, it completely destroys accessibility for visually impaired users who rely on screen readers. Keep tables strictly for tabular data. Ready to test your skills? Section 5, your practice challenge. Here's what I want you to do. Try creating a student information table. Give it 4 proper headers: name, age, course, and city. Then, using everything we just learned with rows and data cells, add at least 3 different students of your choice. Seriously, pause this explainer right now, open your code editor, and try building this from scratch. You've got this. Okay, let's do a super quick recap of what we mastered today. The table tag is your container. TR gives you horizontal rows, TH gives you bold centered headers, and TD holds your regular everyday data. You can reveal the grid lines using the border attribute, and you can stretch cells across the grid using col span or row span. You literally have all the tools you need right now to build professional data grids. So now you know how to organize data going out to your viewers. But what happens when you want data coming in? Up next, in part 7 of our series, we're diving into one of the most interactive and crucial topics in HTML, forms. You'll learn exactly how websites collect information through things like login screens, search bars, and registration pages. Until then, keep practicing those tables and ask yourself, what complex real-world data can you simplify into a grid today? Catch you in the next one.